This is K2 News at 5 on your side.
A brutal scene at a home in Clark County. Tonight, the sheriff's office is investigating a suspected murder-suicide involving 5 people. Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this digital edition of K2 News, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Deborah Knapp. The sheriff's office says they believe a man shot his wife, 2 adult daughters, and his brother, then himself. K2's Emily Gersh is live at the scene. Emily, why were deputies initially called there?
Yeah, Deb, well, officers were called to this home to conduct a welfare check after a family member in Seattle said he received a text message from the suspect saying he had harmed people. Just after 1 Sunday afternoon, sheriff's deputies arrived at this home on Northeast 92nd and tried to get in touch with the people inside, but were unsuccessful. A spokesperson says concerns about firearms in the home led to deputies to use a drone to examine the area and call in a SWAT team for backup. The drone discovered 5 bodies. Medics confirmed they had all died from gunshot wounds. The investigation continuing for hours due to the brutality of the scene. Sergeant Chris Skidmore says investigators believe all 5 people in the home were dead for some time before deputies arrived.
Once they realize that there's people in there that are deceased, it becomes a crime scene. And so realizing it's like, okay, there's no one in there we can rush in and save. And so then they will slow that process down. And yes, they wait for a search warrant signed by a judge.
Now, the sheriff's office says autopsies will be performed over the next couple of days. The medical examiner's office will release the victims' identities after family is notified. Live in Clark County, Emily Gersh, K2 News.
Emily, thank you. An investigation is underway now after a shooting in Gresham left 1 person dead and 2 more injured. Gresham police tell us it happened just after 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon at a parking lot near Northeast Gleason and 165th Avenue. Police found 2 people with gunshot wounds and a 3rd with related injuries. All 3 were taken to the hospital where 1 later died. Police believe there were multiple witnesses and they're asking anyone with information to contact them.
A pedestrian was hit and seriously injured by a driver on southbound I-5 near the Moda Center early this morning. Portland police said officers responded to the call around 2:30 a.m. When they got there, the pedestrian was suffering from life-threatening injuries, taken to a local hospital. The Portland Police Bureau Major Crash Team is investigating, and the driver is cooperating with authorities.
They only actually got paid leave towards the time she died. It was just one of the most horrifying experiences. All the time she was dying.
Tonight, a grieving husband is calling for accountability from the Oregon Employment Department. He says his claim delays caused him to lose valuable time with his dying wife. K2's Christina Giardinelli went to Lebanon to speak with him today. She's live in Salem with that story. Christina, was he finally able to get leave?
Yeah, you know, he's on leave right now. That's grieving his wife's death, but he says he wanted to spend the time caring for her. Instead, he says he was spending that time in a fight with a state agency. What started off as a long-distance friendship for Joseph and Deborah Warren grew into love. Joe eventually moved from overseas to be with her.
And then we had a life together. We were together all the time, apart from work.
3 years ago, Deborah began a battle with cancer. When her condition worsened and she could no longer care for herself, Joe applied for paid leave Oregon to be with her. He says he filed the claim in August as soon as the program portal opened, and that's when the problems started.
I had to spend God knows how many phone calls to find out exactly what was going on. They just kept telling me, oh, phone up tomorrow.
Eventually, a representative told him he had gotten 1 number wrong when inputting his social security number. In the weeks that followed, he says the state agency repeatedly tried and failed to correct the error. Meanwhile, his wife's condition continued to get worse.
Towards the end, they just turned around and said, well, we don't know how to fix it. The software doesn't allow us to fix it. And I said, look, if you don't do something, she won't be here.
He finally ended up getting leave approved just in time to be with Deborah when she took her last breath on October 4th. Joe says he couldn't afford to leave work without pay.
I had no choice. My dad, her cousin come over and make her soup.
Paid Leave Oregon's director was not available for an interview today. A spokesperson for the agency sent a written statement. It reads in part, "We are incredibly sorry to hear about the passing of his wife and his situation. We cannot discuss the specifics of his case, and we encourage him to reach out directly to us." Now, we've been getting dozens of calls with similar stories of people struggling to get their applications through in Paid Leave Oregon. The agency tells me it's been looking into all of these issues and trying to find trends in the issues so that they can fix them. Live in Salem, Cristina Giardinelli, K2 News.
Christina, thank you. Lawmakers listened to concerns around Measure 110 today ahead of the upcoming legislative session. This comes as some advocate to recriminalize illicit drugs, while others say the state should invest in additional resources for recovery. K2's Megan Allison shows us the arguments shared with the legislature.
Advocates of a Measure 110 repeal are suggesting a three-prong approach to criminalization. That includes the options of mandatory treatment, a court-ordered program similar to that following a DUI, or prosecution that would lead to expungement after treatment. But others say criminalization is not the answer. Supporters of Measure 110 spoke in front of lawmakers Monday, saying more investments are needed for tools like housing and outreach workers.
If you are funding detox, which we desperately need, we also have housing to meet that right after they get released from detox, because releasing them back into the streets just exacerbates our issues.
I shared those concerns with Washington County's district attorney, who is pushing for a repeal of Measure 110 in its current form. Those critiques include questions around relying on the criminal justice system during a public defender shortage.
This won't necessarily fix the problem. How would you respond to those concerns?
Well, what I'd say is this. There's multiple problems that Oregon has, and we're trying to fix each problem as it comes up. And yes, there is a public defender crisis happening right now, so Oregon needs to be able to do two things at once, walk and chew gum. We need to solve the public defender crisis while we're also working to solve our addiction crisis. And the two are not mutually exclusive. It's not an either or. We need to be able to do both.
The DA says if the legislature does not move forward with this issue, supporters of a repeal will take this to a ballot measure for the voters. In Salem, Megan Allison, K2 News.
He slipped in and hit the water, and at the blink of an eye, he was gone.
Recovery efforts were in full force at Johnson Creek this morning after reports of a man caught in the current clinging to a furniture cushion to stay afloat. Well, tonight that recovery mission is over. Officials tell us no one was found. Crews put rafts and swimmers into the creek as part of that search, but heavy debris caused those efforts to be halted. K2 spoke to a friend of the alleged victim. He told us the creek's current was moving extremely fast when the man slipped and got caught in it. But later in the morning, Portland Fire and Rescue took to Twitter announcing they found no signs of anyone in the water, and they eventually left.
Well, turning to the cause of those rapids, we're under a storm tracker weather alert. Here's a live look at conditions from the Columbia Gorge from our Visit Hood River camera. Rain's only projected to pick up more, isn't it?
Yeah, increase a lot overnight tonight. It's going to be very heavy at times after midnight tonight through much of the day tomorrow on Tuesday as the next phase of this atmospheric river event continues across the Pacific Northwest. So out there right now, we are seeing some light rain. Temperature-wise, yeah, 65 degrees. That, by the way, is a new record high for the date. The previous was 64. Set back in 1945. South winds, again, 13 miles an hour, humidity at 68%. C-Tran camera, 63 of the current numbers there. Overcast skies, a little bit of light rain coming down. And again, up in Hood River, we are seeing overcast skies here as well. And again, we are seeing some rain coming down, but quite a bit cooler in the gorge, where it's now sitting at 52 degrees at this hour. All right, so here's radar. Let's zoom on in. We're seeing light rain now from Woodburn up through the Portland area, just across the bridge into Vancouver. But much heavier precipitation is going to begin to come over the Coast Range, get into parts of the Willamette Valley late tonight and going into tomorrow on Tuesday. Now, the rain will get progressively heavier and heavier as that focus of precipitation is going to be right into northwestern Oregon and southwestern Washington. So because of that, we are still under a flood watch for the entire length of the valley. The Coast Range, also for the Oregon coast itself, up into the Cascade foothills, you can see right here, and just up to the crest of the Cascades, the snow level is over 8,000 feet. Here, this bright green area, we have a flood advisory up. That's going to stay posted likely now until Thursday. So here are the highs today. Again, 65, incredible number for December here in the Portland area. 64 Astoria, 63 for Salem. Even east of the Cascades, still very mild. It was 62 this afternoon for Redmond, and also at 62 degrees this afternoon in the Pendleton area. On our hour-by-hour forecast, so again, the next front moves on in. There we are tomorrow morning about 9:30. We're seeing moderate to heavy rain coming onshore for the south part of the coast, also up into parts of the Willamette Valley. That continues throughout the entire day tomorrow. Here's the front by about 7:30 on Wednesday morning. Kind of hangs up over the area. So again, the rain continues. Then finally going into late Wednesday, we begin to see things wind down across the area. And again, and then a trough of low pressure moves on through with more showers, but cooler air. That'll push the snow levels back down to what pass level towards the latter part of the week. But the bottom line here is the next 48 hours are going to be very wet across the area, and the potential out there for seeing some fast rising water, and again, the possibility as well, perhaps seeing some urban flooding across the area. Here's our rainfall forecast for you over the next 48 hours. Over 2.5 inches of rain here in Portland, about 2.7 in Troutdale. You get out here to the west, though, Forest Grove may come close to 4 inches of rain, and McMinnville may get close to 3 inches of rain in the next couple of days. So your forecast tomorrow, on the coast, cloudy skies, rainy. Again, we have that flood watch up. Stinker wave is going to be in effect as well overnight tonight through tomorrow. Again, some of those waves could be approaching 20, 25 feet in height on the central part of the coast. Very mild as well. In the Willamette Valley, cloudy skies and rain. Flood watch continues, still mild. We're talking 60 tomorrow for Aurora, 57 for Longview, and 61 out in Troutdale. Gusty south winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. And for the Gorge and the Cascades, cloudy skies and rain. The snow level tomorrow in the Cascades over 8,000 feet. So a lot of that weekend snow we had, it's melting away. Tomorrow's high for Government Camp, close to 50 degrees there. And on the east side, cloudy skies, rain at times, especially in parts of Central Oregon and the Columbia Basin. High tomorrow for Pendleton at 61 degrees, 47 in Baker City, and 57 in Bend. Now, tonight in Portland, we have rain on the increase throughout much of the area, becoming heavy at times overnight tonight. Tonight's low 55. Tomorrow's high is going to reach 60. We'll still be in a storm tracker weather alert on Wednesday, but things should begin to wind down late in the day on Wednesday. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have showers in the mix and temperatures somewhat cooler with highs in the upper 40s and low 50s, about what they're supposed to be for this time of the year.
Yeah, those high temperatures are just wild right now. Thank you, Dave, much.
Thanks, Dave. Gas prices have been down across the country, but the dip may be over. According to AAA, gas prices were falling every day from September 18th until it plateaued today. Average cost of a gallon of gas is $3.24. Here in Oregon, regular unleaded will run you about $3.99, and for people in Washington, today's average sits at $4.33. OPEC and its allies have critical meetings scheduled this week, and experts say its outcome will likely impact prices at the pump.
Also, the Oregon Department of Transportation will get $19 million to help maintain roads this winter. That announcement, a joint statement from Governor Tina Kotek, Senate President Rob Wagner, and House Speaker Dan Rayfield. It comes after ODOT raised concerns over winter service funding. In October, they suggested the state would be less prepared for a snowstorm than last year when a surprise winter storm closed highways and left cars stranded on I-5. The group says the funds will help ODOT restore winter maintenance services, make safety-focused improvements, and purchase new snowplows. We have specific details on our website, KATU.com.
Portland State University expanding its reach in space. Aerospace engineering students designed and built Oregon's first satellite last year, and tonight it's still in orbit. Now they're gearing up for their next mission, set to take off in January. K2 went behind the scenes to take a look at the group's development process.
This is part of that satellite that's going to space in a month. And all of these systems, the first small satellite, this larger satellite, these are all technology demonstration missions. They're basically telling us, are the things that the students developed going to work in space?
Students will test this second satellite over winter break. Once it reaches orbit, they'll shift focus to a third satellite, which they plan to launch off the International Space Station with NASA. High schools around the state will be able to control that satellite and access its live video from space.
New information for you now. Oregon Ducks quarterback Bo Nix is an official finalist for the Heisman Trophy. That announcement coming down around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Nix is joined by Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr., LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels, and Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. A winner will be chosen Saturday night.
Clusters of pneumonia cases in children across the country continue to climb. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares what's likely behind the rising numbers.
Hey there, everybody. There are so many illnesses going around with similar symptoms: COVID-19, RSV, the flu. And public health experts want us all to know that any of these common illnesses can lead to pneumonia.
The main concern right now is that it's showing up in clusters in children.
Pneumonia is an infection of the lungs.
Dr. Clint Koenig of Ohio's Warren County has the largest outbreak nationwide reported so far. As of today, there are 149 cases reported there in children ages 3 to 14. The average age is 8. Another cluster has been reported in children in Massachusetts, and there are severe outbreaks reported around the world in the Netherlands and in China. Following the pandemic, it is raising alarm that another novel virus is behind the outbreak. The World Health Organization echoing what Dr. Koenig's team says, too.
Part of the message we're going with is that there's no evidence to suggest this is anything but kind of routine, typical bacteria and nothing out of the ordinary.
As for why this is showing up in clusters and in children,
pneumonia often coincides with several of the other viral infections that we see.
So parents are being asked to call the pediatrician if respiratory symptoms in young people continue to get worse instead of better.
Now, quick reminder, there is a pneumonia vaccine recommended for younger children. There's also one for older adults. Just like other vaccines, it can keep you from getting really sick when you get that illness. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonis reporting.
And that's it for this digital edition of K2 News. We'll be back on air tonight after the game, which is about 8:15. Thanks for watching, folks.
Good night.